Okay. Are we? Well, let's talk.
So, what are you tying?
All
Claire?
right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Taiwan on Tuesday. We got a crew here tonight. We got Derry, Howard, Dave, and Hal's over here in the corner. But Howard, you're going to be tying up some steelhead flies, talking steelhead. And David's here from Wyoming Whiskey. So we're going to hear a little bit about how Wyoming Whiskey got started. And we're drinking cocktails. We're having some fun tonight. So Howard, I guess I'll let you take it away. Next week we've got Jay Buckner here. He's going to do some like international flies. It's going to be a really cool show too. So stay tuned next week and we'll have some fun tonight. Cool.
Well, Dave. Yeah. How did Wyoming Whiskey kind of get started? Who kind of thought of it? Why was it a good idea? The name's really cool. What?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. It's a privilege to be here. It combines two of my life's passions, whiskey and fly fishing. I'm not very conversant in the steelheading world, so I'm going to learn a lot tonight about that. And happy to talk a little bit about Wyoming Whiskey and what we do. We are a company that started back, well, the idea, or the whole thing was hatched in June of '06 when Brad and Kate Mead decided they wanted to start a whiskey distillery, a bourbon distillery specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I had worked in their law firm for a number of years before that and had gone on my own since. And so when he proposed this to me, it was a very shocking opportunity because these are fourth generation cattle ranchers,
Right.
Insurance defense attorneys at the time, which, sorry, Brad and Kate, it's the most boring and legal work that you can possibly do. And, to have this completely outside the box idea was fascinating to me. So I was tasked with the responsibility of figuring out how to bring it to life. So one of the first things you do is you go to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And if nobody's ever been there and you're a bourbon fan, I strongly recommend going. It's in September of every year.
Oh.
And it is a fascinating display of the best bourbons you'll ever find.
September. They gotta have it in August.
No, I know. It's tradition, I suppose. So we went down there and had the opportunity to meet with a number of folks that were, well-heeled in the industry. And they told us, don't do it. They said, it's going to cost 3 times as much. It's going to take 3 times as long. It's going to be 3 times as difficult.
It's kind of like steelhead.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do it.
There are some parallels here. But much like steelhead fishermen, they're stubborn. And don't tell them what to do. And the same thing with, Brad and I took this as a challenge, which we shouldn't have. We should have just said, okay, we're out. But we did it, and we stuck with it. And we hired the master distiller from Maker's Mark. He had been retired for 2 years. His name's Steve Nally. One of the nicest, most experienced guys you'll ever find. He was with Maker's for 33 years. He is in the Bourbon Hall of Fame. And he was just ready to get off the sidelines, get back into the game. So he and his wife moved out, and we got to making whiskey on July 4th of 2009.
Cool.
That's how it all started.
Okay.
And what I have for you tonight, and then I'll turn it over to Hal, and you can tag in.
Well, I'm kind of a do straight stuff, and so you got like a little mixture here.
Yep, I made up a cocktail
Okay.
that gentleman by the name of...
Delicious.
Yes, it is delicious, and it's healthy. Jesse Brown from Cowfish over in Lander won our first bartending competition that we held, I think, 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And he made what's called the Brown and Gold Derby, which is takeoff of the Brown Derby, which is a cocktail that comes out of Old Hollywood, the Golden Age. And literally there was a bar located across the street from a restaurant. The restaurant was in the shape of a derby.
Right.
And so they made this cocktail called the Brown Derby. Brown and Gold Derby is a little spin-off of that. It's an ounce of freshly squeezed grapefruit juice, and fresh squeeze is critical to any cocktail. Half ounce of lime juice, an ounce of honey simple syrup, and 2 ounces of Wyoming Whiskey small batch that you see here. And you can mix it, shake it however you want, but serve it over ice because it's a little boozy. And it's absolutely delicious. It's refreshing. And I almost brought it in hot tonight. If this was a week ago when it was super cold, I would have brought it in hot because you could do this both ways. That honey holds up with heat, even though the citrus is in there. and you can serve it hot or cold.
Cool.
So I figured you guys would enjoy that tonight. I know you're a straight whiskey guy, and I brought you another bottle because I heard you went through the last one.
Well, we didn't get it to look at.
For the people watching that don't live here, where can you buy Wyoming whiskey?
We partnered with a company named Edrington about 2.5 years ago now. Edrington is the owner of McAllen, Highland Park, Glen Rothes, Brugal Rum, and Partida Tequila. And they have provided a distribution network for us as a result of our partnership. So you can get Wyoming whiskey in all 50 states now. Most states it's a listed product, some states it's a special order, but it is available everywhere. Our other products that are a little less available are available in fewer states out there.
Cool.
So it's a privilege to be here. I'm going to sit back and learn all about steelheading. I will step out and maybe I'll heckle from the background if that's all right.
Yeah, sounds
All right.
good.
Thank you.
Sounds good. I'm just going to throw this in. Then, John, you want to step in? You've been fishing, whatever.
Fisherman report.
I do. This is going to be a dry fly, or a damp fly, if we want to call it that. Actually, it's kind of a version from what John spun some of these up for me last fall, and I did quite well with them over on the Clearwater and the Grand Ron and the snake and salmon. Well, I didn't do too good on the salmon. Anyway, it's going to be a version kind of a Steelhead Caddis. I've done a couple little things of my own on it, and you did a couple little things from an original Steelhead Caddis. And I like them on kind of a good-looking hook. This happens to be a Gamatsu. It's a T10 6H, I think. But a 7989 Tiemco be good. That's a little lighter wire hook. I really like them on. This is a hook made by Mustad. No longer made anymore. Really a nice looking hook, but it is pretty light wire. And a Wilson Partridge would be a good one. Alec Jackson Daiichi. Again, from more of the standard kind of what you'll see a Steelhead Caddis on. This is a size 2, and actually I'll fish them this big. And I'll just start her here.
Is that my cue?
For me?
Is that my cue?
No,
not
just
yet? Okay, I can't
wait one
jump
second
the
here.
gun, I'm sorry.
Wait 1 second, because I'm going to do something a little bit different here.
All right, well, Howard, Tim Nash says, hey.
Okay.
I'm telling you he's watching.
Hey, Tim. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to put this down. I have my glasses on. This is a little move that I got from Wayne Llewellyn, and it's kind of a backward jam knot. Most of the time when we start, we put here and we go down the hook. This, just because of economy of thread, we're gonna do it backwards. So I'm gonna start this right in between the point of the hook and the barb. And now I'm going to work my way back. And I'm putting this in side by side with flat thread. And you'll kind of see why I'm doing it this way as we go. I guess I did tie that on a 4.
Oh,
The heckling has started.
try the other glasses.
Yeah, I think so. I really don't have very good light. Okay, John.
Okay. So just to do a little fishing report today. Ken and I made it out to the Snake River today, pretty close to town, just with these nice weather conditions we've been having. What would you say, Ken? It was probably mid to high 30s today. Bluebird skies, maybe even 40s. Yeah, it was definitely a warm day out today. because of that, we definitely saw some dry fly activity, which was nice. Something all of us have been kind of waiting for as it's been getting, or as it has been cold, I should say. So that was a nice change of pace. Catching plenty of fish on dries. Nymph fishing still productive. Caught a couple of nymph fishing today. We did end up swinging some small streamers. That didn't quite pan out for us, but that's also just swinging flies in general. But as this week, we're supposed to be getting up in the mid 40s or so. So fishing should just be getting better and better from here on out.
Yep.
And that's anywhere, up on the Madison, we talk about at times, South Fork of the Snake, Henry's Fork, and obviously the Upper Snake here.
Yeah.
So just as those temperatures warm up, definitely look for
And the
fishing
nights,
to pick up.
the nights don't fall out.
Yeah,
every
we're not
night,
quite
yeah.
hitting below zero and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which is definitely helping.
So that's the consistency will just get better
Yeah,
and better
exactly.
as we go.
So that's kind of a quick brief fishing report. I think I'll step aside, let Hal hop in here, as these guys can all talk about some steelhead fishing for you.
Okay, so I'm going to put on a kind of a longer tag. Again, this is just because I like the looks of it here. So I've just got some pearl tinsel, this medium, and one of the little tricks here you can do instead of trying to stick it in there, and try to catch it with your thread and stuff. We're going to just take my right hand, my left hand, come up underneath the thread, then I'm going to pull it into place, and I'm putting it on that back side of the hook because I'm going to be wrapping this away from myself. 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and the reason why I want that, because now my very first wrap, when I'm going to wrap that, is going to come from right underneath here.
Howard, you have a friend from New Zealand watching, Howie and Derry. Hamish Murray says, good to see
Hamish.
Keep flowing. G'day from New Zealand, old mates.
All right.
When did he get out of jail? Hamish, you old dog. How you been?
So why do you call it a damn fly?
Because I'm, when I first started, good call, Derry. Now I put 5 wraps on there to tie that. I'm going to take 3 off. And now I'm going to finish on this side with that tinsel. So I have it, one on that side, one on this side, just kind of evens things out. This fly, it doesn't really matter very much, but it can. So later on, with other types of flies, to get a nice smooth body and stuff, having even stuff. Damp fly is because, again, good. Derry, you and I have been fishing together for what, almost 30 years?
Yep.
Steelheading. Hal,
Oh.
you and I have been casting 2-handed rods, our passion there, and fishing together for 5-6 years.
Right. Still heading for about 10 or 12.
Yeah. And mostly,
I've gone to damp from the big sink tips. Slowly.
well, when I first started steelheading, there was a gentleman here, John Collins, come and said, like, hey, you got to go steelheading with me. We'll go over to the Clearwater. And I said, yeah. I steelhead in California, whatever, and you're dragonflies and drowning stuff. And, I was kind of a dry fly. And he said, no, we're going to catch them on top on a dry. I go, what? You can catch steelhead on top of the dry? He said, yeah. Well, it's not a true dry. You're going to do a skating thing and whatever, but you'll see the fish come up and tie. I go, oh boy, I'm in on that. So for I don't know how many years, Derry, what I was just the only thing I'd do is dry fly. That is it. Mm-hmm. Then we started doing 2-handed rods. We started throwing bigger and bigger flies like that.
Major.
And then I really got into like fishing underneath quite a bit because you, in some ways, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of read, kind of get your swing and everything like that. And I would say probably what, in the last 4 or 5 years now. I think my passion, you and I started going to the Deschutes, and we were going in September, so it was time for dry fly stuff to really kind of work. And so I started really getting back into the dry fly stuff, and then you and I, we've been that's what we kind of do now. And why I'm calling it a damp fly, because when I first started doing the dry fly stuff, I was so concerned about having that fly right on the surface, and when it's swinging, you're leaving like a V wake coming across. Now, I'm not so concerned about that. This fly is going to be up on top a little bit. It's going to be right underneath, depending on the water and the different little eddy things that it's going through and stuff. So it's a little underneath. Now it's back up on top, whatever. So that's why I call it a damp fly.
I kind of find that the visuals between a dry fly and a damp fly really become the same thing when a fish does take. And so sometimes I kind of think having a damp fly, maybe just within that surface film, maybe up to, maybe an inch underwater, but you're still going to get the boil, you're still going to get the same type of take, and sometimes they're just more readily to go after a fly that's in the water instead of on top of the surface. But yeah, we've
I
had
think
lots
fishing
of
a dry fly or a damp fly where you get the visual helps you when you go to the big sink tips and are working the fly way deep. Because if you can get used to seeing that action, what a little tip movement does to your fly on top, really will pay off when you go deep.
Well,
Plus the visual is wonderful.
it gets you, I'm with you, Hal, on that it gets you
Yeah.
to understand your speed.
Right.
And when you need to mend
A calm
or
rod.
whatever. So we're getting that fly, because we're fishing these flies under tension on a swing, and we don't want them sweeping across. We want them to be coming across even, at a nice even speed. Speed, to me, is probably more important than depth, to me. A lot of people, the old rule is what? You should be fishing something 3 to 6 feet deep. That's the water's going at walking speed. You and I
Yeah.
fished water this deep.
and a lot faster
Yeah, a
than
lot
walking speed.
faster.
All right, you get another fan from Tim Grimes. He says, "Hey, Howard and Hal, slow down. I'm trying to catch up." And Spain says, "Here we go, back in the day, steelhead stories."
Got to tell stories if we can catch them last year.
Howard, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Could you expound a little bit on the speed that you were just talking
Uh-huh.
about? I just heard you give two different examples of depth and very shallow with faster water, but I'm trying to understand how fast or how are you adjusting your speed for the water condition?
That's again what Hal alluded to, is when you're visually on a wet or a dry fly or a damp fly, you can actually see the fly and how fast that's coming across. You can fish pretty doggone fast water, but the fly's just coming across like this. So I'm doing that by mending. I'm
I see.
doing that by the angle of my cast. If traditionally, if I want to slow things down, I mean, I shouldn't say traditionally, I should say most of the time, if I want to slow things down, I'm going to go more across from me, because I'm like, right now I'm imagining water going from right to left. So I'm going to go more across to slow my fly down. If I want to speed it up, I'm going to go more downstream to get it going. And then making my mends, whatever. Typically now with these big two-handed rods and the such, we don't really have to mend too much.
No.
I mean, you can make one shot at the very beginning.
I think a lot of people are
We
mending
all-
on dry lines when they don't have to, but certainly maybe with the sink tip, maybe that mend is allowing you to get that sink tip to go down before it comes under tension to your rod, and that you become tight to it, and so you've already sunk the fly. For a dry fly, because you're already on top, you might want to get it to land in the water, and you're just trying to get it under tension, and you're hopefully through your cast, you're trying to get a complete cast where it's going to roll out and land pretty nicely for you, pretty flat.
Well, I think starting out, we tend to over mend. You know, you always hear
Yep.
mend,
Mend.
and now it's, what do you mend for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anytime you mend, there's a lot of, until your line gets tight again, you're going to have a belly in there, and you're really not connected to that fly. You're not connected to the speed of what's going on. And so sometimes the more you're mending, the less control you're having until everything comes under tension. Or at least that's the way I kind of see it. So it's kind of nice to really get the angle of your cast to get it to land where you want, and quickly get it under tension, and that way you're fishing the most water instead of just having a big bend in your line from your mend.
Okay, John, you said, well, dummy wax, what do you got? So there's where I'm using dubbing. There's where I'm using dubbing wax right there. Not for actual dubbing. And I forgot my dubbing twister.
So that's a big flat piece.
Yeah.
Well, that's
You're going to spin it up enough.
yeah, hopefully.
Is this the fly you used last year?
Yep. It's one I used a lot last
That's
year.
your head in your hat all year after you caught a fish on it.
You're making your own chenille.
What's the name of the fly you're tying?
This is a version of a Steelhead Caddis.
Can you get all the supplies here at High Country?
Yes and no.
The answer's supposed to be yes.
You can get all the supplies you'll need to tie this fly. Not necessarily
You can get him for him.
Not necessarily these exact ones.
We can do some special orders. How about that?
Oh no. Like I'm going to use, and I was going to get into that. Like right now we're using Senio laser dub, or a little bit close to it. It's not exactly. And I'm going to use some golden pheasant. But just regular, ringneck pheasant will work just fine. So we don't sell golden pheasant, that's all. Here.
So are you
Not
brushing
yet.
that to pull the fibers out?
Yeah, I'm just getting that to get this out and buggy, and everything that's loose hopefully is going to go away. Okay, Derry, I know you and I have talked about this many times, but give me two things that you think are important, and don't explain them. Just two things that you think that are super important. Steelhead fishing.
Fishing with confidence is probably one of them. I think we can all get confidence can get a little rattled steelhead fishing. I would just go with, instead of two things, that one thing. Go out there, just have fun with it, and play around. Have confidence that you're just having fun, and catching the fish is going to be the bonus on that.
Okay, so this tinsel here, I'm going to wrap this. So I tied this directly. So the tag here, I had finished on this side, or I started on this side, finished on this side. This rib here, I put directly underneath. So my very first wrap, when I'm going to come here, is going to be right at the end, and it also, it won't slip off the back of this fly now. Okay, Hal, give me 2 of yours.
Well, I think when you start out, or at least when I started out, it was just cast, men, take 2 or 3 steps, cast, men. And now I find I have a lot better success when I'm focused on the cast, really looking at the current. Where is that fish going to lie? And, cast with a purpose. In other words, I really want to set up for that swing after I've cast. And so, to me, the most important thing is cast with a purpose. Not just go there and, launch as far as you can throw, mend, and take 3 steps. Which gets back to practice casting.
Well, with 2-handed rod,
With the
definitely.
2-handed rod
I
especially.
mean, single-hand rod also, but
Yeah,
Now, are you exclusively a two-hander?
I am now. I've gone to the dark side.
dark
I don't think
side.
that's the dark side.
That's
It
the
is the dark side.
that's the fun.
I don't even know how many 2-handed rods I have now.
Well, I'll tell you, that what was kind of cool is because of our partnership with Edrington, they invited me over to Scotland to do a full tour with the Meads, and I was actually able to learn how to spey cast on the River Spey,
Wow.
which was a very cool thing. It was right at the McAllen Distillery, and I get why people love it. It's
Oh,
amazing
it's-
art.
Well, it's a good thing it's fun to cast because it's not like we're catching a lot of fish. I don't know how many you caught in our month last year, but I think I caught 4 fish, landed 4 fish in a month.
I think I upped you by 1.
Yeah.
All right, so I asked the group, where's your favorite place to fish for steelhead?
Ooh.
Spain Short said British Columbia. Robert McCready said American River just below the Nimbus Dam. And Robert Genova said wherever Howard isn't. Where's y'all's favorite place to fish?
Well, let me finish here.
Okay.
Okay, my important thing, one of the most important thing, you and I have talked about it, is consistency. So, and that goes with both a little bit what you're saying, confidence, goes with making concentrated casts, whatever, so that I'm doing every one. Same time, not, this one's really good, this one I screwed up on, oh, I got a man, that I'm making every one the same. So if that fish is seeing that fly, 15 feet away, and they can, trust me. And that's coming
You fish
closer.
clearer water than I do.
Even in off-color water, they know it's there. And as that fly's getting closer to them, they're getting more excited. They're pecking up or whatever. And now you've got a cast, and it's coming through, and all of a sudden the fly goes like, okay, something's messed up there. You and I've said that. It's not how far you're casting. It's not, it's consistency.
So you're gonna answer my question
Uh,
now? You're not gonna give away your secrets.
Steelhead live in beautiful water.
Yeah.
They're all beautiful.
No, I've kind of gone along a little bit with what you. I mean, even in single-handed rod, one of my passions is casting. So when the two-handed rod thing came along, it just goes hand in hand with steelheading so much that doesn't matter where I'm fishing. Steelhead are on the decline. Doesn't matter where we're going. Maybe if you're lucky enough to be able to go to Russia or something like that to Kamchatka, but pretty much everything here, they're definitely on the decline. So it's not going to be a sport for everyone. I still think if I can catch one fish a day, have one fish on, I don't even have to land it. If I have one fish on and have a good play with it, whatever, I've done, if I can do that once a day, it's good steelheading to me.
That's
Good day as a take. If it'll just hit it once.
And on top of where the numbers of fish are, whether they've shown up that far in the stream, everything else, you're still a lot of times battling with the conditions of what Mother Nature throws at you. So whether the water's off color or really high or really low, but that's why we keep going, because you're always hoping for the perfect day.
Since you're not gonna give away your secrets, Howard.
Well, there is no, not anymore.
Where you like to go, but.
Well, rivers vary from year to year. Some years, like the Grand Ronde last year was pretty bad shape, and I've had some incredible days on the Grand Ronde. Had bad days in BC.
I would say more than anything, there's basically two different types of steelhead. There's a winter run and there's a summer run. And I've had the pleasure of fishing for summer run in t-shirt. I've also fished summer run when it's been snowing and whatever. Winter run, I'd say the fish are a little bit more aggressive in their takes. They're a little bit more on. But also I'm going to be going to the Olympic Peninsula here in a couple of weeks. Hal and I were supposed to go to Oregon like last week, and with all the weather coming in, they kind of told us like there's no sense of coming because everything's blowing out. The Olympic Peninsula, which I've fished for quite a few years now, winter run, the problem is the fish can be there, but you just got a weather event, just like we just had. So it doesn't much matter. I mean, the fish, the thing's high, it's torquing, it's out of place. Water can be in perfect shape, but the fish aren't there. Winter run fish, I mean, they can come in. I caught one on the Boga Shield. I don't know. I don't take a lot of pictures, but I sure wish I had a picture of that. That fish was a big buck, double red stripe, 6 miles from the ocean, double red stripe, had sea lice on it. So that fish, when he came in, he was ready to spawn. I mean, winter run fish can be in for a very short amount of time, and they're right back on out. Summer run fish, they can start entering the system, May, June, and all the way through September and October, and then they're going to hold over until the following spring because they're a rainbow trout, and that's when they're going to spawn. So, to me, they can be a little bit more picky in the stance of little plucks and little. How many different kinds of takes is there? There's a pluck, there's a pull, there's
but you've never been hammered? You've never had the big yank?
I have. You guys have.
Oh, you can't beat the yank.
I have never. I've had No, but I've never had.
Yank.
Yeah, you guys talk about it all the time. I was like, nope, hasn't happened to me that way.
It'll wake you up.
As a neophyte to this, I'm going to be heading over to Stanley to do some steelheading in April. Is that a summer run or a winter run fish that I'm going to be targeting?
That's a summer run fish.
Because it's taken that long.
Yeah, that fish came in anywhere probably from August. That fish has gone almost 1,000 miles. Well, not to Salmon, Idaho. They're going almost 1,000 miles from the ocean coming on in. It's one of the longest runs in the world. So yeah, those fish could have entered the Columbia, June, and by the time that they're coming all that way, whatever. So,
Got it.
Move my drink away from you.
I'm going to need
Got a
that.
nursing it.
I'm going to need that in a second here.
We'll just keep the glass full, and he'll just keep
There.
imparting all the knowledge.
I need a little.
But a guy can go to British Columbia and hit a bad week and have the rivers blow out.
Oh yeah, even.
I mean, you don't have to do exotic travel to get in. You could be on the Clearwater in 12 hours. You know, we've left at 4 or 5 in the morning, be fishing in the afternoon. Great fishing there, some years.
You ready for one?
You guys keep talking.
I can talk all night. So
There you go.
the snake. They're talking about blowing the dams on the lower snake.
Yep.
Will it make a difference?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good question.
Probably not in 5 years. Be a long time.
But it's a step in the right
It's
direction.
a step in the right direction.
And what runs would we see? Steelhead? Would we see salmon?
Probably see
Oh, yeah.
salmon.
Salmon first.
Right. Yeah.
That's exciting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something that
But I bet that doesn't happen for a long time.
Oh, it's gonna happen. But when?
Yeah. It
Was
would.
using whiskey the proper way to let your hackle to rattle?
Well, normally, normally,
Is it politically correct to do that?
normally I have a little glass of water here, whatever. But that was forgotten. So, and that's gonna suck.
You know, I was a dry fly fisherman before I became a steelheader, and I didn't understand why people steelheaded. You know, you talk about freezing to death, how cold it was. There was ice in the guides, there's ice on the line, and you stood out there and you got one fish. And it's just hard to explain when it happens. If you do get the bug, how great that is, you know. For dry fly fishing, what you might have a good day is a dozen or 2 dozen that you sight cast to.
Yep.
You know, steelheading, a great day could be one fish. I mean, it's just so different.
I appreciate that. I mean, the one time
It's a horrible disease. Don't do it.
I'm trying not to get addicted. I've got a couple of my buddies here locally that swear by it. They always go on trips.
Yeah.
And finally, I got the opportunity to do this with Idaho Wilderness Outfitters. These guys, Bryant Dunn, he's a ski patroller over there, and he said you should try it. I think you'd like it. Do more sight fishing and really trying to target fish. And it definitely seduced me into going over. And like you say, I caught one fish in 3 days. I completely blew it on a massive buck. I set it as hard as you can set a fly. I mean, it snapped. It popped the moment that I went to set it. And the guy just looked at me, and I think he wanted to backhand me. Like, you got to be kidding me, man. Like, I got you on that fish. And so I get it. I mean, one fish a day. And, I mean, they're such beautiful species.
They are beautiful animals.
To think how far they've swam to get to that spot. I mean,
For you to put a hook in its mouth.
Yeah, for me to torture it. But,
And that's just their journey in the river, and just think how far supposedly that they are going in the ocean.
Well, they'll
And-
go, all the way across.
Right.
Well, we're just starting to understand where they're going. Where they're going, where they've been, whatever. John, is in that little thing? Is there a little tube of straw of a straw there, pink or something?
Not in this one.
Oh, you know what? Never mind. I know where it is.
I got you.
But you can actually be over there in 6 hours
yeah.
and fishing from Jackson, which is unheard of.
4 hours to salmon.
4 hours there.
Thank you.
You got to stop in Mackey and have a drink at one of the bars there.
Oh, yeah.
Though. That's always
Of course.
a festive evening.
So what I just put on there was golden pheasant. This guy right here, want to up in here, whatever. But again, a regular ringneck pheasant off the rump. That feather worked fine. I'm going to put in some teal here, but you could definitely use mallard. One thing I'm going to do here a little bit different when we're going to prepare this is I'm going to want to have a pretty thin part of the stem, because these stems get flat as they get thicker. And I'm going to take a few fibers. I'm going to wrap this way. So I'm going to take a few fibers off the bottom here. So when I go to tie it off, I don't have fibers on the bottom and the top that are crisscrossing and whatever. It's going to track much better. So I'm going to start my feather in the same fashion.
John's back here doing what you're doing.
What? Oh, no,
He's
Those
kinda
are
flat
his
with
wife's
you.
glasses.
So with this fly being a
Absolutely.
damn
I
didn't
fly,
know if I
do you
bugged him earlier
hitch
when I
this
said that.
when you're fishing it?
I mean, look at the flowers on them.
I
Those are his wife's glasses.
no,
Look at his mask.
no. Hey, when you go to these fly tying expos, whatever, you gotta have something to grab somebody's attention, whatever.
Yeah.
So if you have something like
It's
this,
working.
It's
you know,
working.
you're going like, oh,
It's almost a distraction. I'm
Maybe-
staring at your eyes. Continue, Howard.
okay.
I want to get invited back, so I'm gonna stop talking.
No. So you can kind of see I have less fibers on the bottom here than I do at the top, because when I go to wrap that, now it's going to allow this to start tracking right away, and I don't have the bottom fibers fighting with the top fibers, and I have the top fibers there, so when it goes, they're going to be there already. I don't need the bottom ones. Ooh, I need a little more whiskey here.
Oh, hold on, let me help you out.
Nurse.
You gotta wet your fingers.
Yeah.
What's that technique called? The whiskey wrap?
It's a waste of good whiskey. That's what it's called.
So I'm just folding those back there a little bit. Come on. Put this guy on here. Free up my hand.
All right, got a question for you. What do you contribute the decline in numbers, and would you consider the great growth in seals as part of the decline?
In places. Pretty much any watershed that contains, that's anywhere known, we know what the problems are with why the decline is. God damn it. But the biggest problem is our biggest problem is the people that are in power or have the power and the means to do something about it are not doing anything. And that doesn't matter if it's here in the U.S. or if it's in British Columbia. Some places it's been logging. Some places it's been commercial fishing. And I know some of my friends are going to get a little uproar about this, but some places it's First Nations or Native Americans.
With the netting.
Yes, with their netting
Yeah.
and being allowed to net in the way that they are. Definitely some of... Am I having... Did I catch that? I think I did.
Derry, what do you guys think about it while he's focused on tying?
What was the question again?
The
What do you
political.
attribute the decline in numbers?
Oh, it's a myriad of
It's everything.
Yeah, there's so many different things. But when you do have an area where they do come up against a dam, the fish are trapped, and the seals are there, and there's no natural predators for the seals, they're just gonna go rampant and eat a lot of fish.
Well, and even
they're
the
trapped.
opposite way, going downstream, we don't have the natural flow of the runoff where the smolt, when they're young, can just zip right through the dam system all the way to the ocean. Now they're running through miles and miles of dead water.
They
Some
don't-
of them stocked with walleye, which love baby steelhead. You know,
And they
I
don't-
mean,
they don't-
everything.
They don't imprint. Actually, Steve Pettit on the salmon, they were doing hatchery fish, which they do a ton of them there, but they weren't getting returns, a very good return on that. And what he figured out that they weren't imprinting the way that a natural, without dams being there and that type of thing. So they actually put them in barges that are open and go through those behind the dams where the big reservoirs are,
Right.
whatever, slow water, and they actually take, and tanker them down to the ocean or too close to the ocean and let them go.
So they can get the smells
And
of
they
the
get-
local water
they
and
get the
all the environment they're
Mm-hmm.
imprinting on their minds going. So we're killing them both directions, going down and coming back.
I never thought about the downhill.
Downhill's disastrous for them. I mean, the percentage that make it to the ocean is incredibly small. I mean, there's a reason the fisheries are big business in stocking fish, because they have to generate a lot of fish to get a few to the ocean.
So the fish on the salmon.
Well, get a few to come back.
Yeah, to get, right.
And the fish on the salmon don't have that problem. That would be one of the few advantages that fish on the salmon river would have, because there are no dams, correct?
Oh,
No, there are.
there's what, 9 of them?
On the
You,
whole salmon?
yeah,
So
no.
just from the salmon, they have to go down into the Columbia.
See, they get into the Snake, then the Columbia, and they
Yeah.
had that whole series of dams.
I see.
So not only do they have the longest run in the world, they have every other problem. And then some seal's going to eat them.
Awesome.
Or they're going to get netted.
Or they're
on the-
going to get netted.
on the Columbia by
You know, because they're permitted to net for salmon, and of course, steelhead don't know that they're not supposed to stick their head in the net like a salmon does. Yeah.
And
So the odds are against them.
Is
Yeah.
the salmon itself not damned, though? There's some distinction about the salmon.
The salmon is not dammed, is it?
no.
Yeah, no, there's no dam. Because it takes off from the Snake just below Hell's Canyon Dam.
All right, another quick question. What would you consider pound for pound to be the hottest fish? And I put air quotes
brook
around
trout.
hottest for those who can't see me.
I'd say a brook trout. Oh, Atlantic or a steelhead, one of the two.
That's up. I can tell you this. Give me a 32-inch hen any day. That's the fish I'm looking for.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah, I mean that's going to depend on who you all talk to. I mean,
And where they're called.
Yeah, the Atlantic salmon guys are going to say, the Atlantic salmon. So I want this wing to end at my point. So right about there, and I'm going to squish it on in there.
I'm assuming you take the straw off at some point. I don't recognize that straw.
2 soft wraps, and I'm going to pull down, and when she starts to flare, I'm going to let her spin. And there's a little thing for you. A lot of people will say you can't spin hair. You don't want to have a thread wrap on there because it won't spin. Well, not only did that spin, on these hooks there's a return eye. It's not just one. Claire, can you zoom in here? It's just not one part of the hook. There's a return eye here too. Can you see that? Okay, so people say, you don't want to have thread on there because it won't spin. Well, there was thread on there. I do it purposely because you can go on this fly bin and any heads that are spun and go like this, and if there's not a thread wrap underneath there, they're going to spin. They're going to keep spinning. So now this is there. I mean, that's going to be concrete. That's not going anywhere. So not only does it spin on thread, it'll also spin on two. I mean, there's 2 wires there. So if people promote that, That's baloney.
Is that a technical term?
Well, it kind of is when I'm on camera because I just said something else.
Robert wants you guys to talk a little bit about the evolution of two-handed rods and what they fish now. Get the guys talking about the evolution of two-handed rod and what they fish now.
I don't know if I'm understanding the question.
You mean
Robert,
mean,
we need some help,
specific
Yeah.
rods or
I mean-
specific?
You mean like for stripers, for trout, for because I mean I think they're even starting to use them a little bit like for like bonefish and stuff. There's places.
I know they tried.
Yeah.
But I think the evolution was there so long ago, in Scotland, Ireland, England, through Atlantic salmon. And then it was brought over here. And I'm not sure if the Nova Scotia guys used it as much on Atlantic salmon there in the beginning. But I do know when.
Well, John, why don't you iterate there where for in the Great Lakes?
Yeah, I mean, the great. Oh, do you want me to scoot closer? Or?
Yeah, you get on the
Scoop?
All right,
Yeah.
I'm getting on in. I'll just crouch down behind the table. Yeah, so I mean, for the longest time in the Great Lakes, it was a nymphing game. Throwing egg pattern and stuff like that, and I'd say probably around the 90s, there was a handful of guys from Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio that were kind of starting it. And that was those guys kind of like us or you guys were wanted something a little different, I'd say. Doing your I wouldn't say traditional swinging, but your Skagit line system, stuff like that was definitely important at the time for the Great Lakes, and that's opened up a whole new ball game. Whether or not guys use them for nymphing or guys use them for swinging, that's definitely something that I think has taken fishing to a different level, at least in the Midwest, and I think as a whole, kind of all over the place. I mean, first starting out, I'm sure we're talking about 16 plus foot rods. Now we're fishing stuff that are 10.5 feet or less, in regards to kind of your development or evolution of two-handed rods. Stuff's gotten shorter, it's not quite as long, lines are shorter, all that kind of fun stuff, but
Well, the real evolution has come as lines.
From the line.
oh,
yeah.
totally.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, Derry and I, we started throwing bigger flies.
Yeah.
And one time I was up in British Columbia with another guy, the first guy that I started steelheading with in British Columbia, Richard, and we pretty much had the same rigs, except for I had, back in those days, would have been what they called a mid-belly line, which was
Yeah.
65 feet, and he had a wind cutter,
Yeah.
which was 54 feet,
Mhm.
pretty much the same flies, and we just took like a little break for lunch, whatever, and I picked up his rod and I go, oh, that ain't right, but it's way better than what I'm doing because we're throwing
Yeah.
flies this big.
For sure.
So then I started thinking, okay, it makes sense. What we want is a shorter line with the same amount of weight.
Yeah.
So Derry and I one summer, we were cutting lines, I'm weighing stuff, I'm doing all this stuff, whatever. And I'll never forget, I thought I really had it dialed in.
Yep.
And I couldn't go that night. We were casting, but you did. You come back like, it doesn't work. I go, what do you mean it doesn't work? It's got to work. And finally figured out, okay, grain weight, yeah, da-da-da-da. So him and I did a kind of a really cool thing. We went up the coast of British Columbia in a big boat, and then we had 2 jet boats that we were going up these little streams and checking out for a winter run, but it was late winter, early spring. And we were with a guy there that kind of knew the stuff, Todd Schraff, excellent guy, recommend him. What's his thing? Adventure. I'll get it for you anyway, but anybody going to BC, he'd be an excellent guide to look up. Anyway, we were starting to talk. I was just going like, yeah, they're called schedule lines. I go, yeah, I heard a little bit about that. He says, yeah, you can buy them. I'm going, what? What do you mean you can buy them? I just figured this out. But we're two knuckleheads from Wyoming. He lived in British Columbia where they did it all the time, whatever. So.
But I remember my first 2-handed rod, I had an old wind cutter.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried to cast it, and it's like, why on earth would anybody do this? And until I went to the Skagit line, the Mo tips, and stuff like that, that made such a difference in my ability to actually cast and fish. So the lines themselves made it enjoyable. And now today there's incredible lines out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and matching your line with your fly. I mean, just think if in just regular single-handed trout fishing, if you're casting, a 9 or 12-foot leader and you're, fishing 6X, trying to throw a hopper on it, it just doesn't, you're not generating that energy through. And that was a lot of, the same thing with steelheading with these lines that were just so long, and it wasn't a problem with the lines, but it was a problem with what we were trying to do with the lines.
Right.
Throwing these big flies and longer leaders.
And back in those
it
days,
just wasn't working
Back
out.
in those days, we're sitting in Wyoming, and we're getting this information from the West Coast, and they're doing stuff, and I'm going like, well, I must be an idiot, because this isn't working for me. Yeah, I got a 65-foot body of a line, and throwing dumbbell eyes and heavy T14 sink tip stuff, and going like, I must be really stupid because I can't make it work. What they weren't saying was that guy was using a 13.5-foot rod, maybe a 13-foot rod with a 23-foot body with T14. Yeah, that's why it worked. So what they were teaching us how to do it in style and everything didn't really cross over. They weren't saying, okay, if you're using this equipment, you need to use this type of stuff. Now it's getting much more defined. Now, basically, we have 3 different types. We have traditional, which would be now a long body would be 50-some feet.
Scandies.
Scandi, which comes from Scandinavia. Back in the day, it was called underhand casting. I couldn't figure that out. What do they mean, underhand casting? What do you mean, I'm throwing underhand? I didn't get it.
Where that term?
So, and all that meant was that you're using your bottom hand on a 2-handed rod more than you were using your top hand. And then the Skagit thing. And the Skagit thing really is what made things really go for.
You could be casting and fishing within a day of instructions. And that's when it blew up and got popular.
Got really popular, yeah.
And I still have those big Skagit lines.
Yeah. We got you away from that, too. Okay, so all I did was I changed to a heavier thread to spin that. Now I'm changing back to a lighter thread because I want the head of this. I just really like to have a little contrast in my flies. So the thread wraps, my heads typically, rarely are black. Sometimes they are. But most of the time I like to have a little contrast here, contrast there.
So with that being a dam fly, do you hitch that fly when you're fishing?
Yeah, you asked that earlier.
Right.
I hitch my flies a lot. Doesn't matter if it's a pure wet fly or whatever. The difference is from Travis Johnson, who's done a tremendous amount for my casting, and one hell of a fisherman, got me looking at hitching quite a bit different. The rule of thumb of hitching a fly, which is basically you're making a half hitch around and that's why I'm leaving a pretty good gap here instead of going right to the end. I've got room there where I can put some more knots in there. And basically, if I have the water running from left to right, going this way, I point my fly upstream, I've already tied it on with a knot, but then I'm putting a half hitch around. I'm going to do 2 of them. So then it's going to come off this side. So as I'm swinging that fly, it's dragging it across like so. I don't do that anymore. What I try to do is have my hitch come much more directly underneath now. And typically what I'll do is put one on my side, so do it back assward, have it going down this way, then I'll turn around, go that way, and then put one on the other side and have that come from right from the middle. And I'll put the fly in the water
Makes it kind of.
to kind of look and see how it's going. Yeah, and what it'll do is it'll sit up like this.
Under tension, yeah.
Yep.
You got another shout out, Howard. Corinne says, "Hi, Howard." Smiley face.
My sweetie. She should be here. Margaritas on Friday.
All right, Corinne, you heard it. Next time on Tuesday, we're having margs for you. Is there a whiskey recipe with margaritas?
I don't think we should get into the margarita one. I think that margaritas are for tequila. That's it. Period. All this crossover cocktails, I'm not into it.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So where is your favorite river? If you've had one river to fish in perfect conditions.
Wow.
I mean, that has been the question.
Yeah, no, I know. It's been the question I've been avoiding.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer that.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does depend on time of year. I would just love to be in a river where you could be close to the ocean in good conditions and fish are coming in, fish are present. Really
Close
can
to
be
the ocean is nice.
is
Yeah.
nice.
No, I mean, early season, the Hoe, definitely, Washington would be winter run. The Nehalem would be another one. Kind of mid-season or whatever, the Deschutes. I mean, it's classic. And then, for, mid-September through, November, late October, Bulkley, BC. Because again, I can fish dry flies there in basically 40-degree. Yeah, I kind of lose confidence at 42, but 42-degree water and still be fishing dry flies. Okay, here's another little trick for you. Anybody that's put a thread head on, and after they did, they're gonna put some head cement on there, and it changes color. And you're like, damn, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Some stuff.
That reminded me, Scott said, "How's the YO head cement?" Is that what you're using?
No.
No. Never mind.
So, what I'm doing is, this is for building rods. It's called thread preserver. So I just put a little dab on there, whatever, and that will keep that thread color, the exact color. Now I can put my head cement on over the top of that, and it will stay the same. Now, if I was doing this at home, what I would do is I would put this in a hemostat. Well, let's do these first. Okay, so I put some little flash in here, not a lot. A couple on the side, and one down the middle with black. And I kind of just whack them and make them all a little bit different length. So they all don't come out the same length. I like that one a little shorter. And then what I would do here, I should have just brought one in. I would take and put this under a teapot. Anytime you spin hair, whatever, put it underneath the teapot, whatever, and all that stuff is just going to go boom, and real easy then to trim into what you want. Big difference that I did from yours, John, there was putting that white in the front, which again, I'm looking at it downstream, it's looking at me, and I get much more visual, even in low light. So I'm
That's
just
going to actually skate pretty good, isn't it?
well, I'm gonna trim this,
Right.
but and I'm just gonna do it real quick because I know we're running out of time. But mainly I just take off the bottom here quite a bit, and then I go around.
Claire, are you responsible for putting the Steelhead magazine immediately above your shoulder?
I noticed that earlier. and I
That's
was like,
very
wow,
good. That was good.
unconsciously good.
That's what you get the
placement.
big bucks for.
Product
Production.
placement. Product placement.
Of course, I'm sure Travis wishes he had his book back there. I think we sold out of his book though. What's it called, Howard?
Ooh, new concepts or something of casting or
Johnson?
something.
Travis?
Yeah.
Boy, if anybody ever gets a chance to take a lesson from him,
He's
he can sure fix
he's the
problem.
man.
He
Yeah.
is the man that can fix a
he's
cast.
the man. People talk about
Unbelievable.
the this and that and your D loop and whatever. He has a totally different approach.
Yeah.
Whatever. So that's kind of quick. Kind of quick trim, whatever. Not exactly what we kind of wanted, but
What would you have done differently?
just a little bit more attention to detail. What are you talking about? Wouldn't have broke my thread two
Yeah.
times, and whatever. But yeah, as you can kind of see, even though we live in the middle of Wyoming, pretty big steelhead junkies. So if anybody has any questions or something that didn't really come to mind for you,
I'm gonna just borrow this.
explain maybe a little bit really how to hitch a fly or something like that. It's not that difficult. Once you see it, it's real easy. But yeah, give us a holler. These guys know John and Ken. In the back, somebody comes in and starts talking two-handed rod stuff, like, oh God, yeah, he's gonna be gone for an hour, whatever, and whatever. But yeah, steelhead is.
Yeah.
I mean, I love trout fishing. Don't get me wrong, but steelhead definitely is my passion. Whatever. So, thanks a lot, and see you next week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks everyone again for joining, and all of our guests and
Thank
David
you.
with Wyoming Whiskey. Be sure to try to find a bottle wherever you guys live. Definitely worth trying to track one down. So we'll see you guys next week with Jay Buckner. So stay tuned, and again, thanks for joining. Cheers.
Ooh.